Where have you found community outside of work? Asking for myself and those who are looking for what good communities often provide: feeling of connection, purpose, a place to go, etc. My neighborhood. When we moved in, we sat out front every evening, and made small talk with every single person who walked by. Some were caught off guard, some kinda just waved and moved on, but most stopped to talk. What's interesting is that people who had lived in that neighborhood nearly 20 years together had never talked, and met for the first time as both stopped to chat at nearly the same time. Then we started with small gifts, usually food because my wife cooks exotic things for people to try. Now we get random gifts, usually food or fruits or some flower or plant. Now we have little get-togethers inviting each other, text to ask if need anything from the store, etc. And all it took was being willing to sit outside for a couple hours each night and say hi. Yes, this exactly. I threw a block party last year and the community loved it, and most were like, we haven't had one in years. A year later and we've found lost dogs, gotten people employed, and I have some of the best and strongest relationships in years, and my kids have a ton of others to hang with of all ages, 7 to 15. When in hard times, build communities, not bunkers. I host 2 events. In fall, I'm the pancake breakfast guy, and then in spring I'm the crawfish boil guy. I just put flyers on people's doors before each event. I just think it's fun and missed the sense of neighborhood community I had as a kid. Had my be the change you want moment. My kid on the other hand gets a kick out of having everyone know his name and being a hyper-local celebrity lol. Based and grill pilled. We've been doing the same. I recently have gotten into brisket smoking, and for the last few weekends, my wife and kids have been out in the yard every Saturday all day smoking meats. At night we offer some to everybody who walks by. It's really been nice. I'm prepared for this to be an unpopular opinion, but I'm glad my neighbors don't do this. I know my neighbors well enough. We check each other's mail when they're away and will help out in other ways. But I have lots of friends to keep up with outside of my neighborhood, people I have a lot in common with. My neighbors, not so much. If they wanted to talk with me each time I saw them coming or going, I would likely start actively avoiding them so I could get on my way. It's sad that modern American yards are so unfriendly to sitting in your front yard, but that can be easily fixed, even within the boundaries of overzealous HOAs or towns. Just make a cute little gate, it doesn't even need the gate, with flowers at the end of the walkway near the sidewalk, and add in a table and some chairs, or move them out when you go to sit. Being at the sidewalk versus being 20 to 40 feet away on a porch makes a huge difference. When my wife and I bought our house last year, we made bags of cookies and visited every neighbor to introduce ourselves. This has paid dividends. In our neighborhood we now have friends we see weekly, people to call upon if we're out of town and need someone to check on the house, and use of 2 neighbors' pools. I've got a similar situation here in Baltimore. The community I'm a part of here is like nothing I've ever experienced. We actually have a neighborhood Telegram chat of 70 people where we post about neighborhood events, parties, etc. My wife and I have a great circle of friends within this community, and it led us to buy a house a few years back before the market got all wild. We just had our first kid, and there's plenty of other newborns popping up, so I'm looking forward to seeing them all grow up together. Started doing this to a limited extent. For years I'd have never dreamed of doing this, as I did not want to feel obliged to casual acquaintances, i.e. I feared expectation of friendship that I did not want to reciprocate. Turns out most people are just happy to leave things casual. I don't mind small talk, related to why I've had limited friendships. I've wanted fewer, high-quality ones as overshooting my social needs is uncomfortable, and I'm a creature of habit. Used to overcorrect towards solitude and that backfires, but I've had friendships in the past where I dreaded having to meet. It's funny, in a lot of mainland Europe, i.e. not UK, also not non-rural France, That's completely normal. People would rather sit at the front, even if they don't have a garden/balcony/anything at the front, just sit on the doorstep or chair in the street, with a coffee/smoke and chat to neighbors or nearest shopkeeper. In the UK, I think it's probably more common not even to use your private back garden with your own family, because the neighbors are using theirs this evening. This worked for me, too, except I'm usually the one walking by rather than the one waving people over to chat. If you don't like small talk, a great way to interact with neighbors is to offer your help. For example, if you see someone doing work outside, gardening, etc., offer to lend a hand. Greater than my neighborhood. Have a question. What kind of place do you live in? Is it houses that are apart by some distance, lawns/tree lines separating y'all, etc.? Is it houses that are built next to each other? Is it duplexes/townhomes, etc.? This is just brilliant. It makes all the difference in a neighborhood to have folks who seem to genuinely be friendly and caring staying very close by. My wife and I try to do this in neighborhoods where we stay without being intrusive or too chatty. Works wonders. Awesome. Reminds me of the balcony movie, saw on Mubi. And, this is kind of the idea behind this, for apartment dwellers. Volunteering. And before you brush it out skeptically, like oh yeah right, those people, it really doesn't have to be anything you don't care about. I volunteer at a boathouse on the city lake nearby, just putting kids on pedal boats and kayaks. I don't even call it volunteering, I just love kayaks and water. It's amazing how your perspective of time and people and service shifts, when you spend some time being in service to other people, instead of anxiously counting hours that you're being paid for, or could have been paid for, and maximizing receiving. I've confirmed for myself time and time again the advice I've read: if you have a busy life and want to increase a feeling that you have more time, try spending your time for free, for example, volunteering. I wish this wasn't brushed off, but when I suggest it, frequently, as a scientifically proven method of improving happiness, well, it gets brushed off. I guess it's really difficult to relate just how much it can improve your life. Some of the highlights of my entire life have been coaching 3RD/4TH grade girls basketball at a YMCA. Yeah, it's a lot of work at the time, but the memories are priceless, and the benefit to the kids is definite. They tell me, years, and sometimes years and years, with a baby in their arms, later. Definitely. I like gardening. I started volunteering in a community garden, growing stuff for people who need more food. I like the people I work with, and I enjoy growing vegetables on a bigger scale than I can do in my own garden. And they make tea and cake, and often we get to take home some spare seedlings or whatever. It's really great. It doesn't feel anything like free labor, it mostly feels like hanging out with some nice people and doing a fun activity. Plus one to this, some of the best people I've met in my city are from the local DIY bike co-op. I started out walking in to check it out and see if they had any good bikes, and now I open the shop and teach bike repair there once a week with several friends I wouldn't have otherwise met. I can definitely agree. I used to be very skeptical about how fun or healing volunteering could be. I started volunteering at an animal shelter, and beyond being incredibly relaxing, I love animals. It's nice to switch from trying to optimize my career, code, education to just using my hands to help take care of something and meet new people. My anxiety has gone down a lot since I started doing this, and I was able to meet some new people. Strongly recommend trying to volunteer with something you care about. Definitely this. Volunteering is an awesome way to develop community. I struggled to make friends in a new community where I was working remotely for years, pre-COVID. I finally really started connected with people my second season being involved with a youth sports program. 6 years later, we just had 50 people over to our house. 30 of them were connected to that sports program in some way. My dad met his best friend volunteering with the local soccer league in my hometown. The story I heard years later was that my mom insisted to him that he do something to get out of the house, and 2 decades later they were still the best of friends, and, in fact, had moved to the same overseas city around the same time. One of my obstacles, it's a stone's throw away from a retail/service job. Okay, not really. But what I mean is, the way people respect you. My obstacle is my fear of being treated the way I was 15 years ago, when I had to work retail before my professional career. In that sense I'm happy that I work behind a computer screen. But I do think it's made me very isolated, introverted, and lonely. Wife and I volunteer for our kids' school, and also the kids' weekend sports, soccer, cricket. We've made a lot of friends through that, and because it's all local, a strong sense of community between all the families that get involved. I think volunteering gets brushed off because in many places it is just a pure scam. The organizations collect money and then charge volunteers exorbitant sums for the privilege of working for free. I looked at volunteering about 15 years ago, and from what I saw then, I have never entertained the thought again. A fitness community. This could be either a BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, place or even a CrossFit gym. I've done both, and while I'm not here to promote CrossFit, I am here to say that a group fitness class is awesome for meeting other people and finding a community of people that do something similar as you, but have absolutely nothing to do with your work. I work out with police officers, lawyers, doctors, dentists, stay-at-home moms, accountants, students, other tech folks, etc., you name it, they're all there. There's something about shared misery that brings people together and builds a comrade. That turns into a community where you start to hang out with them out of the gym/etc. This happens at any group fitness place where the same people show up at the same time to do the same thing. It's natural, organic and freeing. I've moved across the country 3 times now, and this is how I integrated into each area I moved into. Or a team. I joined a rugby team that is open to everyone but highlights LGBT inclusivity in sport. We practice twice a week, have games, and have other events. I've made so many good friends from the team it's hard to keep up with them all. Staying fit with them is an added bonus. Greater than there's something about shared misery that brings people together and builds a comrade. That turns into a community where you start to hang out with them out of the gym/etc. Agreed, my outside work community is my martial arts community. There are the brief moments while waiting that you end up chatting with your partners. Eventually you learn what they do, if they have kids, etc., and since you see them weekly you oftentimes get to share their experiences. When I was in college, it was pretty regular to ask the other people what they were up to that weekend. Next thing you know, you're grabbing food, going out for beers, seeing Marvel movies, personal experience there, or other things. The shared misery scares people away, but you end up becoming invested in your partner's progress as well. When new students join, you also get to serve as a peer mentor because just 6 months ago you were in their shoes. As a counter-argument I recently heard, some people dislike the hierarchical structure of martial arts. I can understand, but at least from my experience I enjoy it. I've had the same experience with the BJJ community. Very positive and welcoming, and an incredible sport for training the mind as well as the body. Some people get turned off by the behavior of certain fans of UFC, but in my experience the groups of people who are starting fights in pubs and people who are actually showing up to intense physical training on a regular basis are mutually exclusive. To be clear to folks about this, both BJJ and CrossFit have a community element to them. Especially CrossFit, as far as I've seen. I cannot say that is true of everything else. Yoga has no community for most classes you'll take out there. Same is true of Pilates. A lot of other fitness classes you take that are maybe doing HIIT or whatever, it's gonna be the same show up and immediately leave type of crowd. CrossFit and some other fitness activities are very intentional about having a community and making one if it doesn't exist. That's why CrossFit was often referred to as a cult. It's got a large community vibe. Greater than there's something about shared misery that brings people together and builds a comrade. It's been scientifically proven that this is the way to create strong bonds with people. It's why we are easier to get close with former classmates and co-workers. My fitness group is the Rec Basketball League that I participate. Reading the comments, I notice a lot of posters seek out tech communities. While I get why a nerd would want to do that, I have a different tendency. Most of my outside of work activities are actually not tech related. Sure, I have a bunch of private projects to work on, but I usually do that in single player mode. I picked up a number of also working in tech friends over time, and going out with them is still fun and interesting. I also enjoyed the social time at various conferences, meeting like-minded people. But I don't want to spend my after-work time and weekends with tech folks by default. That is, simply put, too much of one thing. Stepping out of tech is what keeps the day job interesting. Greater than I notice a lot of posters seek out tech communities. While I get why a nerd would want to do that, I have a different tendency. Absolutely. I genuinely enjoy writing code at work, but I literally never do it in my spare time. I already spend a greater number of waking hours in front of my computer than I do with my friends and family, or playing music, or mountain biking, or... I'm not in SF, so may be easier for me, but most of my good friends are outside of my industry. On one hand, it might remove opportunities for networking/progression. On the other hand, I want to get out of my work self when I'm off the clock, and this is better. I don't want to talk about work when I'm not at work, and although work topics still come up with non-tech folks, it's easier to not end up in a deluge of techie stuff. And it's often way more interesting to talk about work when someone is not doing anything closely related to my career, at least for me. Church. My wife and I sit in the cry room without little kids, and have gotten to know the people that are there with us. It's gotten to the point where we have started recognizing these people all over town. Very cozy and nice. I'll say, having kids is obviously itself incredibly meaningful. As an additional benefit, kids are a fantastic icebreaker/opener for other families with kids. I'll second this. I've been a part of several fantastic church communities in the various places I've lived, both before and after I had kids. And yes, a great side perk of having children is connecting with other parents. Smile. I live in Seattle, Cap Hill. Before I moved here, and when I first moved here, from London, people told me that Seattle was a terrible place to make friends and build a community. My experience has been exactly the opposite. This has been the best place I've ever lived for making friends and building community, especially as a sober person. The order of importance, I have found community herein. Swing dancing, both classes and going to shows with live jazz bands to dance. I was never a dancer before moving here. Lifting, there are great locally owned gyms in this neighborhood. Getting to know people who own or work at local businesses. People who have similar tech interests, that I meet from a mixture of the previous three places. Finally, and I think this is a really important thing to do, I try to organize events, either in my home or in any one of the local parks in the summer, where friends I've made in different parts of my life all get together and also get to know each other. Greater than finally, and I think this is a really important thing to do, I try to organize events. This is generally the thing Seattle is missing, people that organize and then tell people to show up at X place on Y date. Most of the time, it's a million people that all say they would love to hang out more, but nobody ever makes solid plans. I think it depends on more factors than just location. I am older and live on the east side of the Seattle metro area, and our neighbors have been generally unfriendly. When we first moved in, we invited a number of neighbors to a backyard barbecue, and afterwards, none ever reached back out to us, and even worse, another became extremely aggressive towards us. It's been over 4 years since we're thinking of moving, but housing prices are incredibly high and volatile. Oh. I'm on the east side. I've been attending Brazilian Zouk classes, but I've been interested in swing. Where do you go? And I completely agree about event organization. It really introduces you to a wider swath of people than your initial search may have turned up. Way to go. The church is like a second family for me. I made so many great friends there. Of course it will not be for everyone, but if you are open to it you can try. +1 for this. No church is perfect, but my experience is that church is a place where I can go to gather with people from diverse backgrounds, perspectives, and needs and come together on some common points. We need more than ourselves to make it through life, we need to be kinder, and we should serve each other. I have seen my congregation rally around new parents, people with mental health conditions, and other such common struggles. Serving others is a great way to feel that you are part of a community. Church can be a great framework for that kind of thing. Yes, I'm a practicing Catholic and attend church often with my fiancée. Everyone is welcome to even attend Mass, they just don't receive communion, and participate in activities that we organize. We also have many support groups for elderly, grieving families, young adults and so on. Additionally, if you want to do volunteer work, contact the closest Catholic church. You can join pretty much all of the events regardless of your background. We are not some exclusive membership, the doors are open. Agree. Obviously if you're a staunch atheist or otherwise just can't stomach the idea of God, then visiting a church not recommended. But if you grew up Christian and drifted away, or you can entertain the possibility of a higher power, then I recommend checking out a church as a place to find community. Denominations are different flavors of Christianity, and which denomination you visit is important. I'm personally a member of the Episcopal Church, which I find to have a very small amount of dogma and is tolerant of a wide range of beliefs. The theological dogma can be summarized in the Nicene Creed, which is a pretty short list of what the church holds to be true, and even if you as individual differ, tech is chill about that. After that, members of the Episcopal Church are more united in what they do together rather than what they believe together, songs, taking communion, common readings, etc. The Episcopal Church is generally one of the more liberal/progressive churches around. We ordain women and LGBTQ individuals into the clergy and perform same-sex marriages, for example. Otherwise, it's a nice group of people that I see every week. A lot of churches have a coffee hour or a meal after the service, and it's a time to chit-chat with others. They care about me and I care about them, and people check in on each other to see how everyone is doing. When we had a baby, people brought us food, and we always get cards in the mail for birthdays and such. It's nice. Since we're a community of people, we can sometimes work together to accomplish things I wouldn't be able to do on my own. We run a food pantry and we've supported families fleeing from bad situations, and not in abstract sense, but doing the legwork of finding an apartment in town, and providing furniture and stuff. One family attends our services, and their kid is about my kid's age, so we've become friends over that. Again, I know religion can invoke strong feelings, so if the very idea is off-putting, leave it alone, it's fine. But for me, it's been a community I've appreciated having. I'm not religious at all, rather agnostic, but my wife is a non-practicing Christian. Although I find a good sermon/pastor to be motivating, thought-provoking, and just full of basic life lessons that happen to he documented in an old book. I'm fine with the concept of the right church because of the community effects, especially as a parent and wanting my kid to have as many positive role models as possible in his life, peers/adults/seniors. So after many years of being with my wife, we decided to start when my kid was 4. We actually wanted to start earlier, but it's a hard habit to just introduce, then 2020 happened, etc. So here we are. It's been quite a positive adjustment. It's easy to see the cult and abuse headlines and write it off, but when done right I still think it's incredibly powerful, and religion as a whole is just a framework for peaceful civilization and coexistence with communities. For those who aren't religious, there's also Sunday Assembly. Those who are spiritual but not Christian, there's also the Unitarian Universalist Association. I expect sect/denomination has an influence here because my experiences in the past were strictly familial. No one made friends there, though there are familiar faces. Once service is over, it was Sunday brunch with family. At any rate, potential friendship is a weak rationalization for joining a religion when there are many avenues to do this. Not smart enough. I don't even get your implication here. I'm fine with that though, doesn't seem additive to the discussion.
Hey guys, this is the Rogue YouTuber here. I recently had a big change in my life. I had a baby daughter. Here she is. If you could do me a favor and remember to hit the subscribe button and bang the bell, I'm hoping to really create a YouTube channel that really gets people excited and brings people the best, most interesting content collated from across the internet. I'm saving up to save my little girl to Carnegie Mellon Computer Science Department. So please remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.